hold on. Now I remember this. I was a kid back then. I remember this vividly. It was plastered all over MTV. You remember MTV News back in the day? Every 50 minutes on the hour, you get an MTV update with what his name? Marks. I forgot the host on MTV. But I remember this, man. Now it's some. It might not be what we thought it was after all these years, after 30 years. Talking about Kurt Cobain, it didn't go down where we thought. I haven't. This is my first time watching this video. I haven't watched it before, so I'm gonna watch it with y'all. My honest reaction and review. Let's check this out, man. Come on, man.
Self-inflicted, but now forensic experts are saying, hey, this might have all been staged. More than 30 years ago, Kurt Cobain's passing was ruled to be self-inflicted, but now forensic experts are saying, hey, this might have all been staged.
More than 3 decades after his death shocked the music world, questions are once again swirling around the final hours of Kurt Cobain. Nirvana's lead singer was found dead April 5th, 1994, inside of a greenhouse above the Seattle garage. And Seattle police, they closed the case after the King County medical examiner ruled it citing a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Shotgun wound, to be even more specific. So why am I talking about it now? Well, an unofficial private team of forensic scientists says the evidence tells a very different story.
And I mean, this case has been closed for longer than I've been alive. But in April of 1994, Kurt Cobain was found unresponsive in his Seattle home. A firearm injury was discovered, and authorities ruled it a self-inflicted one. A note was then found nearby, and toxicology reports showed high levels of substances in his system. And again, the King County medical examiner determined the manner of death was self-inflicted, and the Seattle Police Department agreed. Case closed, seemingly, and that was the end of it, or so we thought at least. And look, I am no conspiracy channel, but recently there have been official news reports about a new independent forensic review of this case. And some of the claims made are strange enough where I felt like I should probably cover this. So today we're going to be going through what's being claimed and what the authorities are saying in response. Typically, I start by explaining, who the person we're talking about today is, but most people know who Kurt Cobain was. Lead singer of Nirvana and an absolute musical genius. But back in 1994, Cobain had been struggling, and we know he had chronic pain and depression. Just weeks earlier, there had been a serious medical incident overseas, and police previously removed firearms from his home after concerns of his own safety. And the medical incident we're talking about involved Cobain taking an OD-level amount of substances before being found by his wife, Courtney. Then a few weeks later, Courtney called the police to say that Cobain was locking himself in his room with a firearm. But when police arrived, he said he was actually trying to avoid his wife. And again,
yeah, man, I remember all this, man. Oh man, this brings back so many memories of my childhood. I remember all this, even though I wasn't a huge, but hey, I wasn't a Kurt Cobain fan. Oh, let me start lying. But when you watch media, especially when I had cable back then, we didn't have internet, of course. But you would see these people all the time, Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain. And I remember this just being flooded on MTV, BET, all over the place, man. This brings back so many memories.
Both these scenes happened just the month before he passed. And I'm mentioning them because they've been used as proof that Cobain was leading up to his passing. But they've also been used as proof that not everything was good in his home life. So on April 8th, an electrician installing security lighting discovered him in a room above the garage at his Lake Washington Boulevard home. At first, he thought that Cobain was asleep. Then, he realized something was seriously wrong. Authorities later determined he likely passed away around April 5th, and a handwritten note addressed to his childhood imaginary friend was discovered nearby. And officially, the case was classified as a self-inflicted passing. But back then, not everyone accepted that. And that was partly due to the mess that happened in the week leading up to his passing. Because for 6 days in April 1994, Kurt Cobain was missing. One of the biggest rock stars in the world was essentially completely off the radar. Police were looking for him, his wife was looking for him, and she even hired a private investigator. But on April 1st, he called Love from Los Angeles, and she later told the Seattle newspaper, he said, "Courtney, no matter what happens, I want you to know you made a really good record." And according to Courtney, that was the last time they ever spoke. He then flew back to Seattle, and on a flight, he happened to sit right next to the Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan. McKagan then later said that he felt something was off. And quote, "All of my instincts told me something was wrong." After learning he left his treatment, Love canceled his credit cards and hired a private investigator, Tom Grant, to track him down. Meanwhile, Cobain was reportedly seen around Seattle on April 2nd and April 3rd. On April 4th, his mother filed a missing persons report, telling police that she feared he might harm himself. And according to the police timeline, on April 5th, he returned to his home and went into the greenhouse above his garage. He then wrote a note, he left his wallet open, possibly for identification, and then sometime around that day, he passed away. He wouldn't be discovered, for 3 more days, though. And almost immediately, questions started popping up. A local journalist then started doing public access segments, suggesting the case didn't make sense, with one of the main points being there just wasn't enough blood on the scene. A private investigator later said that he believed there were inconsistencies in the timeline and in the evidence. Documentaries were then made and books were then written, but by the late 90s, the story had turned into a full-blown cultural debate.
Yeah, I remember that because they were saying it was no blood, that much blood found at the scene. But if you self-delete from a gunshot wound to the head, can be blood everywhere. So that didn't make sense. I remember that. It's a few other things about this case. Hopefully he bring it up in this video that refresh my memory. Why I thought a lot of what they were saying back then didn't really make sense.
Then you had a documentary created called Kurt and Courtney, which then explored the theory. Then in 2014, on the 20th anniversary, Seattle police reviewed the case again. They developed rolls of film that hadn't been processed back in 1994. They re-examined the scene photos, and once again, they reaffirmed the original conclusion. Officially, nothing changed. But here's the thing, the conspiracy never really went away. And now, in 2026, it's back. Because a new independent forensic team says they've looked at the same materials and reached a very different conclusion. And this is where it starts getting weird again. So here's what's different this time. In early 2026, multiple news outlets reported that an independent research team had taken another look at the case. And I know, I'm talking about a private forensic group, but these are peer-reviewed, published findings. Meaning, a whole bunch of smart people who specialize in this kind of thing looked at it and gave it 2 thumbs up. So it seems short-sighted to just dismiss this. They reviewed crime scene photos, autopsy findings, and toxicology records. And after doing that, they claim the evidence fits a staged scene. Not a self-inflicted one, a staged one. That's a massive claim. To put it lightly, Michelle Wilkins, one of the researchers, said that the forensic specialist Brian Burnett reviewed the materials for several days and concluded the death was more consistent with homicide. That is massive. So here's what they're arguing. They claim the amount of substances in a system would have left him physically incapacitated. We're talking like 20x the OD limit, so that tracks. And according to their argument, someone in that condition would struggle to coordinate movement, let alone operate a firearm. Wilkins says that Cobain would have been in a near comatose state and barely able to breathe. Secondly, they point to what they describe as oxygen-related organ damage. They argue that certain signs of the autopsy are more consistent with someone who stopped breathing due to substances rather than someone who died instantly from a firearm injury. And then they point to the scene. They describe it eerily clean. They question why his hand, which was found wrapped around the part of the firearm, didn't show any kind of visible blood splatter as they expected. Wilkins said, in quote, "There is no universe where that hand is not covered in blood." They also question the organization of the substance kit found nearby, saying it looked way too neatly arranged. Their argument is essentially someone under extreme physical duress would not carefully cap needles and put equipment away. They then argue that the top portion reads like someone expressing frustration about music and fame. Then they claim the final lines appear visually different, larger, more rushed handwriting, and suggest that this could indicate tampering. And I mean, that is interesting, because it seems like they're implying he wrote the letter about leaving music behind and someone else added onto it. So, not gonna lie here, this looks weird. Looking at this note,
Well, if what they saying about the blood splatter pattern, you're not gonna shoot yourself in the head like they say at point blank range, and a blowback ain't gonna be all over your hand, blood splatter. That makes zero sense. Like they said, that's impossible, totally impossible. So what they're trying to say is they trying to say, maybe we're gonna get to the end of the video. Maybe they're trying to say someone else did it, or he's still alive, or it's a conspiracy theory. Let's see where he's going with this, though.
See what they mean. Suddenly, the writing gets really big, and it looks a little different. But the team says they asked for the case to be reopened, and authorities have responded. So the Seattle Police Department says the death was ruled self-inflicted, and that remains their position. So the King County Medical Examiner's Office said they are open to reviewing new evidence, but they've seen nothing that would warrant reopening the case. So now we have 2 positions. The findings here are reanalysis of existing stuff that have been reviewed before. Sadly, without a new piece of evidence, they might not just be able to get the case reopened. The other side is the Seattle Police Department has had requests for this case to be reopened since the conclusion of it 30 years ago. The conspiracy side of the story has been around for almost as long as the official ruling, but a team of experts publishing a peer-reviewed analysis is still a lot more solid than 3 decades of conspiracy theories. But a lot of the stuff in the new report matches with a whole bunch of the theories that I mentioned earlier, like the public access host who said the police reports just didn't line up. He claimed there wasn't enough visible blood for what had happened, which is pretty similar to what the recent analysis said. Then you have Tom Grant, a private investigator who had been officially hired by Courtney Love during the chaos before Cobain's passing. And afterward, he publicly said that he believed the crime scene was staged, and his arguments focused on a few big things that are, once again, also in the official report. He questioned whether someone with that level of substances in their system could physically coordinate pulling a trigger, and he also questioned the lack of clear fingerprints on certain items. Tom Grant was also the guy who pointed to the things like tour money and industry contracts as financial motives. Then there's the documentaries. Nick Broomfield's film, Kurt and Courtney explored the murder theory in the late 90s. That film mentions one of the most popular theories, that Courtney Love orchestrated everything. And I mean, it could make sense that people thought that she had something to do with it, because especially during this time, they were always in the news for their music, but also their relationship issues.
Reports of frequent heated arguments surfaced, some escalating to physical altercations. On March 18th, police were called to their home in Seattle after an explosive fight. Cobain had locked himself in a room with a gun, threatening to take his own life. Officers managed to de-escalate the situation and seized several firearms from the house.
Even their daughter, Frances, once said, "I always knew their relationship was toxic. I don't promote having a fix-it baby," which is what I was, to fix their problems. That is so sad for a kid to say. But there are a lot of theories as to why she would. Some people think that, she was the handler. Others point to the fact that she gained his estate after he passed. But it is also very important to mention that Courtney Love did sign over the estate to Kurt's daughter, Frances, in 2012. But as of February 2026, his passing remains officially classified as self-inflicted. So whether this new report changes anything in the future, we don't know. And look, did Kurt Cobain openly have issues with depression and substances? Absolutely, yes. But I don't think that means that we should just ignore details that look very weird. And again, in this video, we are absolutely not accusing anyone of anything. We are just looking at the public details. But regardless, someone who's thinking about taking their own life can still be hurt by someone else. Those two things don't cancel each other out. But unfortunately, no one really knows what happened to him. Not 100%. But it doesn't seem like the police department is going to look into it any further, at least for now. And honestly, that's kind of just a painful ending that some people still struggle to accept. And that's maybe why we're still talking about it. But regardless...
All right, in conclusion, man, that's crazy. I never knew that. Back in the 90s, of course it was before the internet, we had to accept the narrative. Whatever narrative they put out, we just had to accept it. We may have some doubts about it, but hey, we couldn't prove it. We couldn't research it. We couldn't go, none of that. So we didn't have the internet. We had to go by the narrative. And now with technology, we can go back in time and see things. You got people opening up cases. You got new technology. So man, I never thought of it, man. Then he said people thought Courtney Love could have had something to do with it. Nah, I don't think so. But who knows, man? Who knows? But like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in this video. Peace.